So, so welcome everybody. Today we have the privilege of spending the next hour with Heather, who is co-owner of Dead Ends Salon, and she's also the artistic director for John Paul Mitchell Systems. And she's managed to do all of this in 15 years. So I have to know, Heather, how did your journey start? Where is it taking you? I know that in 2006 is when you got a scholarship from Angus Mitchell to go to a Paul Mitchell school. So that kind of set it off. So kind of walk us through where you started as a future professional to now the artistic director of John Paul Mitchell Systems.
I can't believe it's been 15 years. Gosh. Well, yes, I would have to say, immediately after high school, when you've got to really put your cap on, what am I doing with my life, so to speak? I really was just so intrigued with the life of a hairdresser. Just kind of getting to have that flexibility in that work life, enjoying life. And at that time, it was really all I knew was going right directly behind the chair. I had no idea of all these other avenues that the beauty industry could offer you. So first off the bat, I thought I would go rock it in the salon. I would be, working my hours. If I started a family, I could, go do the kids and come back to work, see a few clients. And shortly after, or while I was in school, coming to my graduating time, is when I realized, wow, there is so much more to this industry than, just the salon, which was pretty cool. And from there, I really dabbled into education. And education was the door that brought me into all these other avenues of just different types of work, whether that be education through a trade show, education one-on-one with salon accounts, education in workshop, multi-salons coming together to do hands-on or product knowledge experience. And as I was so young still in the industry, a bit of mentoring had to happen, before I was just right up in front of everyone teaching. So that mentorship program I went through with the National Educator Program at John Paul Mitchell Systems was just, I give credit to that piece of my career path alongside of being a learning leader at Paul Mitchell schools and, going through our certification program and just leveling up every opportunity you had to become better, stronger, and more well-rounded. So, through that time of, I call it mentoring, I was a mentor at schools. I was mentoring under our artistic director team at the time. And I really learned a lot. I absolutely said yes to every opportunity. And at that time, and I still believe I live this, is I wanted to try everything at least once, If it was maybe doing up style on a stage in a class, I said yes at least once to get that experience and know what it was like. And I would have to say probably about the last 5 to 6 years is where opportunities started to present to me. I was maybe more of that lead in the class, and I had to kind of pinch myself like, oh, now there's a mentor in my class I'm going to train and bring up to the next level. So just how that role kind of changed. And, as I began to now be that lead role in a lot of the education scenarios, it was really eye-opening to me to see how I had a different purpose now. I also had to be that powerful example to this new person coming up in this scenario and train them who that was me. So I always kept my experience at the forefront. How would I have liked to have trained? How would I have liked to have been redirected? How would I have liked to have been coached? And gosh, I still am like, wow, 15 years, that's been so crazy. I can't believe it's been that long. So yeah, through that time frame, I did hit a bit of like rundown. I think we all get to that point where we're just like overworked. And that's where I had to take a step back and reflect, like, why did I choose this industry? Why did I really decide to come into this and commit? And it was back to that scenario of that behind the chair, really wanting to service the guest and make people feel great. So about, yeah, 5 years ago is when I took a moment and I stopped and I kind of had to evaluate how much time was being spent in education and elsewhere. And I decided to resign from educating at Paul Mitchell schools. And that's when I opened up my sweet Dead Ends in Costa Mesa to give back to what brought me to the industry, what brought me to the party, and started servicing guests again, which really did fill my cup. And it was about the balance of the circle. So I've been doing that now the last 5 years, and along that journey, I continued educating for John Paul Mitchell Systems. And within the last 4 years, I started in the art director team. And just last year, I transitioned now to the director of education for JPMS. So I'm just blessed, and I'm so glad I've stuck in this channel of education, because that really does like strive what I love to do. And I feel like I'm finding that balance. It's a challenge all the time, still every day, but I think reflection really helps you to stay on path or know when you might need to pivot and alter. So I keep it running. My schedule's pretty full, but that's how I tick to my tune. So that's where I'm at today.
Heather, that's so amazing. I love that you were talking about the art of balance, because that's always the biggest question that people ask me, like, how do you stay balanced? And so that's absolutely huge. I love that you said leveling up, and I love the fact that you're in the salon suite industry. And so there has been like a mad exodus outside of the typical employee-based salon. And so I'd love to get your opinion and your advice, your leadership advice, because we mainly focus on salon owners that are W-2 employee based and or suite owners. We're coaching a suite owner right now that's been in business for 25 years. And she's like, I want to open a salon now and not be behind the chair. And so we're taking her from that extreme of 25 years of her own chair, just one chair, right? No assistance, nothing, for 25 years into the business. So what advice, first of all, would you give owners in salons, W-2 employee-based salons? Okay, number one. And then what advice would you now give suite owners, since you've been a suite owner for 5 years?
Sure. Well, as I started off, I did work in that traditional employee-based salon, W-2 salon, which I think is fantastic. And I would say pretty much everyone starting off in the industry, and to all our future professionals out there, that's probably the best advice I can give you, is to start off there. You're walking into a whole new real world scenario. And after all the things you've learned, now it's time to get into the game, step up to the plate. And with that traditional employee-based salon, there's so much more of the business aspects that are just taken care of for you. You have to go in and you can really focus on what you're doing behind the chair, which you're still learning at that point. You don't have every guest situation nailed down under your belt. You don't know how to manage, different types of upgrades or sustain your income and know what that's going to look like 3-4 months out. That's still a learning process for you. And with that employee-based salon scenario, you have the coaches like your salon manager, your other stylists that you work more in a team atmosphere and dynamic that you can rely on to level up and to learn, how you take things to the next level. And I think it's all about a team effort, always, and even when you're in a suite scenario, your team is now you and your client. So you're never in this really solo, even in a suite scenario. So, in that employee-based atmosphere, it's really about learning the different experiences you go through every day, and every day is its own day. So as you progress through the weeks, it's different how you manage. Again, I think it's really that income and understanding what that circle of consistency is going to be like. That's going to be something I think is huge to learn. And for the Suite Avenue, first off, you've got to be well established. Those walk-ins and that business is not just going to come running up to your door. So in the Suite atmosphere, like you mentioned, Tina, one of your salon stylists you're working with is thinking about Suite 25 years. I think that's awesome to consider. 25 years in the game, a lot, you've been through a lot, If you're brand new going right into a Suite, I see it all the time in my building there. There's so many fresh stylists kind of sitting there day to day, just waiting. I think they are intrigued with being their own boss and kind of managing their own business. But if the clients aren't coming through, there's not much of a business to manage, right? So I think also it depends too on your lifestyle. At that time in my life going into the Suite, I was very heavily still booked with education. So I actually found it a challenge when I was going through to interview at salons to say, hey, I'd love to be a stylist part-time. Well, what is your part-time? I'm like, well, that's where we really got to work with each other. I can't really commit to the first 2 weeks of the month or every Wednesday and Friday. I might be on the road 3 weeks out of the month, but that week I'm here, I'll kill the game for you. I guarantee that. And I get it. It doesn't work for some salon businesses and ownership. So that's where I decided to, bite the bullet and go into my Suite, where I knew there would be 2 weeks of the month where I would be forking it up while I did my education job. But those other 2 weeks that month I was there, I had to equivalate that to the 4 weeks in the month. So you've really got to be on that I call it that math logic side, that money making business side, to really understand and make that consistency. Because when you're not there in the Suite, all of the business, the rent, everything is still due. That's going to continue to ride. That just doesn't go on pause either. So they're two complete yin and yang approaches, and I think you've really got to learn both of them to understand which one does fit right for you and how you can excel in whichever avenue you choose to be in.
You said something really interesting there. You talked about a lot of times when they go into the Suites, they don't understand the business aspects that a W-2 salon provides to you. So kind of talk about some of those business aspects that maybe caught you off guard when you went into, a solo Suite.
Sure. So I think all Suites also have a different kind of niche to what their offerings might be, but small things, just like your electric and your water. In the salon, those are probably the 2 biggest bills that come through for that traditional employee-based salon. Think about how often those blow dryers are running, the lights to see what we're doing under the roof, and the water. Almost every guest gets through a wash house experience, and in some cases 2 or 3, depending on what that service looks like, right? So certain salon suites might consider those bills a part of your rent. So, you can understand if you're paying your rent just for that unit on top of additional bills like your water and your electric. We know internet is what is at our fingertips. That's how I run my suite. That's what my guests do all day while they're sitting in the chair. What does your internet service look like for the month when you're working through with your business? And then it ties into all of the actual tangible things we're using for our services. I myself am a colorist, so my color bar is racked and packed, but everything from your color choices, permanent, demi-permanent, lighteners, toners, and even when it becomes like that scenario, when you're like, I never really use this shade, but that guest is going to need this shade. You might carry just 1 or 2 boxes of that certain formula, right? But everything, your developer, then your foil, your cotton, the bowls, how are you going to measure your developer, the beaker, the scale, the tint brush? And that's just now focused on color, right? It goes on and on. You think about the towels you're going to provide for your guest, the robes and capes, the laundry you've got to turn over to keep that nice and sanitary for each and every guest service. Your wash house, what are you going to shampoo and offer your treatments for upgrades? And this is, again, everything you would provide as a professional. We haven't even spoke about now, how do I offer the products for retail and take home to protect their investment? So what products are on the retail shelf, and the consistency of keeping that available. So, I think that's another piece of that Sweet Avenue. People don't really understand that commitment. If maybe they are coming from that employee-based salon, or if they've never even had that experience of an employee-based salon, they might not even understand they've got to offer retail and how much that could simply just beef up your revenue. Retail can pay your rent if you invest and think of that appropriately in your suite. So those are just the few starts of it. And then it becomes like how you want to customize and personalize your suite experience. Are you providing coffee and water? Does your guest get a mint or, a tissue during their service? You have a nice little setup of just comfort and ease for your guest in that salon. And again, it's the consistency, because I've seen a lot of salon experiences when they open up, it's like the shebang, everyone has it all. And then, 3 months later, there's no more tissue for the guest, or there's no more hand wash in the suite, So I think, again, it's developing that consistency. So the record keeping, the systematic approach. When you're out of something, how do you replace? How do you budget to replace everything to keep what you want to perfect as your personalization and your guest experience?
I love the direction that we're going in this conversation, Heather, because the salon, we actually have one independent contractor that we've been speaking with, who's become a coach now, because she had realized that she had nothing to show for it. 15 years in the industry and as an independent contractor, and she didn't have anything to show for it. And she had ended up getting cancer, and she didn't have any money to pay for it. She didn't have health insurance. She didn't have any of that. And so now she's coaching independent contractors to be financially educated. And then the suite owner that we're coaching for the 25 years as of course, self-employed as well. And she said she has nothing in the bank. And I said, well, what did you do with all the money that you made? And she said, I don't know. And so I said to her, well, do you have like a profit and loss statement that we can look at and see how you've been budgeting everything? And she said, I don't know what a profit and loss statement is. And so the business cap has not been on for either one of them. Now it is, because of the wake up call that they both have had. And so can you talk a little bit about that aspect as well? As as I mentioned, with the salon owners, many of their team members are going to be walking away and becoming independent contractors, and many have. We've been working with a salon that had a full salon walkout, and they ended up shutting down their salon because all of their team went to Salon Suite. So how can we better prepare our team to be prepared financial wise, right? And education wise, to be prepared for that type of lifestyle?
Yes. And I'm not a full expert here, but I've invested in myself to have an outstanding financial advisor and someone who in this professional job can guide me through this process, So the best advice I had received was to make sure your business and everything you're doing for your work as an independent is separate from your personal.
Yes.
I mean, if we think about it, if you were in the employee-based salon, your checks and everything are coming to you as that individual, right? But let's say, heaven forbid, you fry the hair off and this and that. That legal situation is gonna go through that employee-based salon. You have that little bridge there to kind of help protect you on that. Mm-hmm. In the suite atmosphere, if all of that income and financial status is coming to you as that individual, and again, that scenario, you fry the hair off and you're in this legal situation, that's now all going to come after you as the individual, right? Now, by keeping that separate, and in my certain case, I was advised to create a LLC.
Right.
And with how it was explained to me was, if a situation like that was to happen, they cannot go after Heather as the individual. My car, my house, my personal things could not be taken from me, but the business or whatever was under the business umbrella has that risk to, maybe be shut down or anything like that. So that was really eye-opening to me, to think of all this hard work we do each and every single day. And you never know what's going to happen in the salon, or, the situations that get thrown your way. To have those personal items that we work so hard for, that we goal set for, that we achieve, be taken away by just simply not creating these kind of separate, lanes in our financial bracket, was something that I was just like, I cannot live with myself if I didn't set that up correctly, and then by also having it set up correctly, you can really dissect the numbers and see what you're spending under your business, your overhead, versus what you're spending for, your pleasure, your fun, your vacation. When that's all lump sum under one certain account, it's really hard to differentiate and understand, how much money's coming in versus how much money's coming out. So my biggest piece of advice for independence, understanding that transition, is to create that whole separate financial account for your business away from your personal. And I think that's a big thing that I notice a lot of suite stylists just, they get everything again set up for the aesthetic of the suite, but it's that interior operation that isn't quite cleaned up as nicely as it could be.
I love that. I love that you said that. That's something that is definitely missing. Tina and I have talked to a lot of, future professionals that want to go right into that suite atmosphere, and what you just talked about how important it is to really have that business knowledge and have you set up so that they can't come after you and, take everything from you because of a mistake. So I love that you shared that. Thinking about, obviously we're kind of in this industry, we've done some shifting, so to say, since COVID and kind of the new way of doing some things. What are some things that you've seen, obviously, in your role with JPMS, as well as, behind the chair? What are some things that you see, or some things that are coming?
As far as what's coming, I think that's quite a bit of the unknown. I think one thing I've taken as a forward focus shift in this last year is to really make the most of what you're working with. I can say right now, I think our world is experience this struggle of, we know it as back bar, but loss of what's available out there right now in the world. And I think this is something like we didn't really know. We trained ourselves in Paul Mitchell schools, but looking back and reflecting again at like the system, is make the most of what you have. Right now in the salon, if we're out of Tea Tree Special Shampoo, our #1 seller, then everyone's going to get to enjoy the great classic Shampoo One, this clarifying that's going to give you that nice balance that's exceptional for all hair types. And we're going to bring you back to the classics and go into this wonderful leave-in conditioning treatment called the conditioner. So it's really celebrating what you have to work with and making the most of that. I always love to use this phrase, is like, let's not forget what brought us to the party. We have it's cool. It's all this fun, new, everything is always excellent to be innovative and turn things over. But what brought us to the party really still is in the game, and you can really leverage your business on all opportunities. Product right there is just an example, but as far as like what's coming, I think that's a little bit of the unknown right now, and still, as much as we dream and want to leverage innovation, I think we're still running into that challenge of what's available. How can we, get things confirmed and moved into the actual production and get out into the world? I know is a big struggle, and not just the beauty industry. I mean, right now, what did we just recently hear? Like coffee beans. Coffee beans for the world is a struggle. And what that's doing is inflating coffee prices everywhere. And that's going to be, I know it's a sillier scenario, but it's not just our beauty industry that we're working with right here. It's the world. And I think we all as humans in this society just got to celebrate what we have and what we're working with, because we're still blessed with everything we can work with in our lives.
So good, Heather. Oh my gosh. Yes. Simplify what you have too. And, we've been talking a lot amongst ourselves is how can we maybe like reduce the size of our team and each person carry more hats. And I think that's something John Paul DeJoria has always shown us by example. And now we're able to say, okay, we need to kind of shift our thought process here. And what can we do? And a quote that kind of came to me last week was, we could complain and remain, or we could pivot and profit. So are we going to sit here and talk about how things used to be? Or are we going to talk about how things can be and how we can shift? And it's so funny. I sent Sean a video. I was in Sam's Club and I'm shopping, and all of a sudden I see the floor cleaner, scrubber coming at me. And I'm thinking, what is this guy doing? Like, he's going to hit me. And all of a sudden it slows up and there's not a person in it. It was a robot. And I was like, whoa, you can complain and remain because you can't find any maintenance workers, or you could pivot and profit. It slowed up around me. It knew a person was there, and then it pivoted down the next aisle. So how are we going to pivot? And so will you please talk to the salon owners out there, especially the employee-based salon owners that are really complaining right now about their team members wanting to take time off, about their team members not coming back, just about the whole beauty industry in general? How do they need to pivot?
Yes, I think the biggest thing with that is you can only control yourself. And at the end of the day, every effort you're putting into every hour of your business is all for you. I mean, you're not sitting there doing your 3-hour foil work for the person next to you, or, the stylist 3 chairs down. You're doing that for you to sustain your income, to feed your family, to enjoy your balance of life. Right. And again, I think it's unfortunate. You might feel that frustration or the weight of the world on your shoulders. Like, oh my gosh, they're not here. All their clients.
Mm-hmm.
Spin that mindset, think of how many more guests now you can have, how many more color services or opportunities you can build your book onto. I think also what I like to remind myself, again, I'm a huge reflector. So I think back to like, I remember that time, Heb, you were just like, oh, I only have 2 guests on my book this week. How am I going to make ends meet? Well, now if you're in this situation where guests are flooding through the door, that's a blessing. That's a huge celebration, but you can really only control yourself and what you're there to do. I think it's taking it with a grain of salt when you're hearing, stylists complain, and that's their issue. That's on them, and if the end result becomes there's all these guests we have to take care of, it's again evaluating what you can put out there, what you can take on, and being clear and communicating that, letting your salon manager know, letting your other stylists know. For example, it's important to me, I keep my Thursdays off. This is the day I balance to give back to my family. And I'm happy to take on more guests Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, but Thursdays are just something I can't meet in the middle on. And that communication helps others understand where you're at, and you can all work as a unified unit right there. So clear communication, evaluating what you want to take on as that team player, where you really, can't. And I think it's when you can't take it, it's the why. Like, why are you suggesting that? And oftentimes for me, it's to create that balance, to create that sanity. If I needed those Thursdays off, it's to ensure my Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays are rocking and I can be there 110%. But clear communication, I think, is one big thing. If you haven't learned that in this past year and a half, and being in the walls of your family 24/7, that's something that I think we got to bring also back into the outside world where we're working with, and every individual that's by our side, is communication, understanding, and hearing one another. If you're going to put it out, you've also got to take the moment to listen for others and what they might be going through when you're working in that team dynamic.
Heather, you have such a positive way of looking at everything, and you have exceptional verbiage. Where does that come from for you? Because we know that some salon owners out there are kind of on the poor me pity party, and here you are saying, we just got to look at it this way. We just got to, where is that something that you've always had, or one of your mentors? Like, how did that just come about? Because Tina's brought up some things where, you could very easily go down, I know there's no workforce, there's this, and you just instantly just have another way to look at that.
Well, Sean, I think it does truly come from my spirit of aloha, my Hawaiian heritage and background. I don't know, I know, Tina, I think you've been to the islands before, but for any of you guys out there that have ever just been to the Hawaiian Islands, I think when you're there, you just get this whole other dress of calmness, of spirituality, of kind of just rolling with it. My family is from Hawaii, and I truly believe it's how I was grown up. I was brought up in a big family. Everyone pitches in, and if you're not pitching in, you kind of heard it from everyone else. So you did that once or twice, you knew, all right, I got to be a stronger team player. But I also think it's a lot on your mind and your energy and your body when you invest into a dead end. When things are just crap, that it's a terrible situation, and you want to strive on that, it really drains your mind, your body, and your soul more so than you think. And one of my biggest mentors, Stephanie Kachowski, you guys know her. I've gotten to travel the world with this woman, and we'll sit on planes for 15 hours, and sure, we might have a little session where we, just unleash, but then we kind of get each other right. Okay, have your tea. Let's get back to it. How are we going to turn this around? How are we going to walk in and make this situation excellent? And, and all you can do is put an effort into it. But at the end of the day, I think of everything is an experience, whatever it might be. Your experience could be boring. Your experience could be nerve-wracking. It can be exciting. It could be a sad experience, but you have a lot to put into that experience. And whatever you're in control of to put into it is oftentimes how that's going to come out. I'm not saying I'm an angel. I haven't gone through every beautiful experience in life, but when it's been kind of that rough experience, I sit there again. Well, you didn't really have the best attitude going into it. You knew walking into this, it was going to be X, Y, Z, And I think when you're in that state and all right, I just gotta pivot, and you might just have to sit back sometimes, sit back and observe, watch how this experience unravels. Where can you come in? Where should you just kind of sit back? This is going to be out of your hands here. I was watching my family. We were setting up for a little celebration of life, and we had a big tent we had to set up. And usually in the team atmosphere, especially with all of our hair teams, I'm pretty much one kind of leading the meeting, and okay, Tina, I need your help here. Sean, I need your help here, right? So I'm watching my dad, my uncle, my cousin, they have all the poles. They're trying to put this tent up. And I almost went in to say, you guys need to look at every piece you have first, count that there's enough, then go to the set, and I just sit back. They'll figure it out, and it's not always your role to take that run and lead each and every time either. So that also can create the ease on you of when you need to take things on and when you can kind of let others strive that path and support them in that manner.
Wow. Heather, I love the spirit of aloha, and I feel like that's everyone in the Paul Mitchell world has that spirit of aloha, just like who you're hanging out with. And so we're so blessed, to be able to have that with Angus, with John Paul, with you, with Stephanie. Something you said really hit home, and I love this because with your family, if someone wasn't pulling their weight, you heard from each other. It wasn't the parents, but it was from each other. And, the highest form of leadership, I've always said, is leading ourselves. But the next highest is peer accountability. And so I know as salon owners, as business owners, I'm coaching right now a nonprofit director right now. And she's so far ahead of her people right now. I said, your people are right here and your team is way up, or you're way up here and your people are here. You're 20 feet ahead of them. I said, you need to come back down. You're so frustrated with your team, right? And so talk a little bit about that as for salon owners, okay? How they need to come back to their people, right? First and foremost. And then how can they create a culture of peer leadership where everyone, regardless of their position, everyone holds each other accountable. What is your best advice for creating that type of culture like you have done in your own family?
Yes. So in that scenario, like the leader or whoever it might be, so far ahead of the group, right? That's an ambitious leader. That's somebody who wants to get it done. They know what needs to happen and they are going for it. I think the missing link there is empowering the others to help get the whole pack there. One wolf out in the snow is not going to survive, but the pack of the wolves will survive, right? So I see this quite a lot in like the leadership roles. Somebody who just kills the game, they get it all done. But when that person might go on vacation, or that person unfortunately is out for 2 weeks, whatever it might be, the team almost sinks the ship because they don't know how to do it. So for any of those leaders up there who are just way ahead of the game and are frustrated with their team, you've got to really start delegating the pieces out and give permission, empower the people to step up. And they're not going to know how to do it at first, and small bits at a time. Maybe you give 3 people the next 3 steps and they might drop the ball. I'm throwing the ball back to you. You dropped it once. What did you learn from it? How are you going to pivot and take that back on? And if this wasn't right for you, is there maybe someone else on our team you think would strive in this scenario? I think asking the questions and putting it back on the team to really help provide the answers of how you can come to this solution or bring everyone up those 20 notches is something huge. Because if you're up there just making all the to-do lists and what needs to happen, people might just look at that as like, oh, there's so much we got to do. I don't want to do this. We've had those thoughts. But if you get to empower what needs to happen and have a say, you're going to look forward to doing some of those things to help the team elevate, and what's expected of you. I think a lot of times there's this expectation of the leaders, but it's not clear to the team of what they need to do. A lot of the times I hear team members say, well, I didn't really know I was supposed to do something like that. So again, that communication to both ends. But if you're a leader, you really got to recognize you have a whole team to help bring this end game to life. But if you're not utilizing them or giving them an expectation or guiding them, how are you all going to make it to that end point?
When you think of, I love that you said that. What do you think is preventing leaders from empowering their team? What is that disconnect that you see?
I think it's the transparency. I think it's being real with the team and saying, listen, there's some things we really need to get on the same page with. And I also believe it's, that leader recognizing that they're the leader. They're the ones put in this position to guide the pack. Oftentimes, I think leaders kind of don't recognize, or they fall off of that mindset that they have the responsibility to bring everyone else abroad. When you become that leader, you've got to take yourself out of it now. I think I learned that a lot in this role of director of education. I've had that opportunity to be on every stage and teach in all the subjects. In this role, it's not about me being at the place anymore, delivering this education. In this role, it's about who's on this team. How do I leverage all the people in their excellence and put them where they need to be to make this standard of education come to life? So I think a lot of times leaders get clouded in the me cloud, when the leaders need to be outputting, how does this team work? Who's the best in this scenario? How can it's really understanding who you're working with. Who can I partner with this person to bring the best out of them? You got to take yourself out of it and really leverage the group you're working with in their most powerful setting.
Yeah, that's so good. And something I've always loved about you, Heather, it's never been about you. It's always been about your people from day one. But not every single leader has that same motive. And so we're doing a 6-month course right now with Salon leaders. And it's basically the 5 strategies of a healthy business. And so next month, we're going to focus on fixing our leadership. And we're actually reading a book called The Motive. And it's by Patrick Lencioni. And interesting enough, Heather, it's most leaders, they're not like you. Their motive is not very sincere. It's not very integral, right? And so let's talk about that, because Sean's question leads to a really great question as well of check your motive. If you're seeing that your people aren't doing what you want them to do, check your motive. And you kind of alluded to this earlier. You said, I had to kind of reconnect with my why again. And we always have to do that. We have to constantly go back to that, because if that why is not big enough, you're not staying, right? And so can you talk a little bit what you've seen out in the trenches, because you certainly have been out in the trenches, Heather. You've been in every avenue of this industry, and talk about the motive that you've seen with a lot of leaders that have crash and burn. Let's put that warning out there to the leaders that are listening to this podcast right now, what they can look for.
Sure. I think the motive, I love that. I wrote that down. I need to look into that book as well. But I think for me, I grew up in a sport kind of upbringing. I was on a softball team, volleyball team, and one biggest thing is there's no I in team. Like literally, there's not a letter I in the word team. If somebody said, oh, there's a me, M-E, I was like, okay, you're going too crazy on this. But, there is no I in team. And again, in this leadership role, oftentimes when you're not meeting your goal or your wants and needs, it's a reflection of your leadership, in my opinion. It's a reflection of, did you deliver the instruction properly? Did you deliver the instruction and just expect they got it? Or did you deliver the instruction and clarify? Tina, do you really know what our goal here is? I want you, in your mind, you tell me what the job role for you is after we just laid that out. Because oftentimes what you're delivering and what someone is interpreting can be off the hook. They won't be on the same page there, right? So I think it's really making sure you're clear and having compassion about it. Have you ever enjoyed working for somebody who is just, you need to, I want this, like grilling you? Oftentimes you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm just going to get by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need to make it a fun atmosphere, something people look forward to, and a safe place. You got to allow your team to come to you to say, all right, I gave it my all. I know that was something you were really looking forward for our team to do, but if I could just be real open with you for a moment, I don't really feel this, and that worked out well. And as a leader, you've got to be able to take that. And you got to be able to take that with compassion too, because it takes a lot for somebody to come up to you as that leader and share what maybe is not working. And if you sit there again and you take that, well, I don't care, this is the way we're going, then you're probably going to have a team who isn't going to be on board with a lot of what you want to get done. And a lot of leaders, I get it. They work very hard for what they want to get done and the goals that they have on for the rest of the team. But if you're not making it a safe, fun, engaging group setting, you're going to be ending up solo on that team. You should maybe be your track runner or your tennis player rather than the volleyball team or the soccer team. So I think it's about compassion. Again, think about how you would want to be coached. Think about how you would want to be led. Do you want to sit there and have someone grilling you all the time? That's most likely not the case, and I do that a lot of times before I go into a team meeting, or right now I've been working a lot with our JPMS top trainers, and what's the expectation with virtual education? I couldn't make the expectation until I did that, until I did the virtual education myself also. A lot of times I think you've got to put yourself in the trench to understand the glitches, to bring it back to your team. As I went through this experience, I realized hands-on was difficult virtually. So here's my observation of how we can get through this obstacle together. Any other suggestions? I think it's always great to grab suggestions from your group too. Not that they need to go into play, but what can you consider, right, to help elevate? And when people's suggestions come into play, then they know, hell yeah, she's listening. I love that. I get heard. I get to be a part of this. So really, and that's another thing as a leader. This doesn't all have, if you're on a team, right, and you're a leader, this all doesn't have to be you. I think a lot of the leaders get in that tunnel vision, put the weight of the world on their shoulders. I've got to create all this. I'm this leader in this role. And it's like, leverage the people, hear what they have to say, consider it, and then with your masterful mind of a leader, you pick and choose what is appropriate to come into this objective you're building.
I love this. All such great advice, great insights. As we kind of wrap up, you mentioned somebody earlier who's a huge mentor of Tina and mine as well, Stephanie. So as you've been around her, what is some of the best advice or best observations you've had being around her?
Oh, the one thing that just blows me away with Stephanie Kachowski is being in the moment, being in the presence 24/7. I can remember this time we traveled, we were in South Korea. That's a long haul flight. That is a whole different time zone. Your mind is working on this other level. You're dealing with translation, and we've done all of our work of prep. We've set up our ballroom for our training, and now we have a dinner to go to with the entire team. And there's plenty of traffic in South Korea, just like there is here in Los Angeles. So we had quite a ways to go to the team dinner. And Stephanie was just so empowering and so engaging to every person in our car who spoke minimal English. I mean, I'm sitting in the back, like wiped out. I'm like, I could really use a 30-minute nap before we get to this dinner. And just the conversation she held and being with the people was something I thought, okay, I've really got to learn how to take that piece of the job under my belt, because we're still on stage. When we're at an event like that and we finish the actual work of the hair, that movement from one facility to the next with the customers, you're still on stage. And really what makes that powerful connection for your business is those small integrations of that relationship building. I mean, I think most people would have thought, okay, we're in the car, you know, our translator, we're all having that difficult time with the communication. We could have easily kept the 30 minutes to be quiet and sat there, but she chose to make it a fun situation, and the 30 minutes went by so fast, you know. But being with the people, making the most of your moment, and being in the presence, and at the end of it too, it wasn't even about, Sean, tell me about your top services. It was about, oh, do you have any nieces and nephews? What's your favorite thing to do when you're off of work? And really getting to learn and know who you're working with to build that relationship even stronger. Until this day, when we go back into Asia and we have our full team updates, it's so much fun now to see all those people we rode in the car with, because we had that kind of offsetting, get to know one another. So she's just exceptional all the way around, full through in business. But I would have to say her relationship building on those smaller sound bites is just something I think is so impeccable for all of us to do. I think we can easily get wrapped up in the business and what we're here to do, but it's simply taking that moment to, well, how are you? How was your weekend? Like, what was the funnest thing you did this summer? You know, and just getting to know one another on a different channel, I think, is what Steph is excellent at, that she's motivated me to do more.
Wow. It's so good, Heather. You're so right. And it is fun driving with Stephanie. I will attest to that every single time. And you're right. She is very, very present. I mean, what a great message to give all leaders, like be present and make the most of everything wherever you're at. You're always, if you're a leader, you're always on stage. I don't care where you're at, if you're in the Starbucks line, in the car, or actually in the building, you are always on stage. So always act like it, right? Act worthy of a leader. So Heather, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you first and foremost?
Yeah, if you ever want to reach out to me, all channels work best. You can hit me up through Instagram, H_Ka'anoi. I'll put that in the chat box. You can DM me there. My email as well, heather.kaanoi@jpms.com. Facebook. I'm available on all of those channels. So anytime, always reach out. I think it's always great to connect. And you know, we're all in this industry going through our roller coaster ride together. So connection is king. And I think if we can, you know, keep communication between one another, we all learn from each other and we can all make it out successfully.
Oh, so good. I love that. One of our salon owners said, you're always on stage, living with integrity every moment and living the culture. I love that. Yes, it's H_KAANOI for Instagram, and then Heather Kaanoi. So Heather.KAANOI@jpms.com for those of you who are not live with us today and listening to this recording and this podcast. So Heather, the two words that I heard from you over and over today, which you are incredible at this, is consistency and connection. Any last piece of advice that you've been wanting salon owners and salon leaders to know as we end out this podcast?
You know, the last piece of advice I think I'd like to share with all the leaders here today is celebrate your victories. First and foremost, we work way too hard to hit our goals and have excellence without sharing and celebrating to the world. And with that celebration, I hope you accept what everyone else is going to want to know to how to celebrate and find that success with you. You know, when you celebrate and put that out there, people are going to say, I want a piece of that. How do I get there? And they're going to ask you as a leader, how did you get to this piece of your business and really hit your goal? And the other layer to that is connect and communicate. In those rough times and in those struggles, you know, do you have one or two other people to lean on, to simply chat it out, to simply seek, have you been down this before? How did you handle it? Because again, one beautiful thing about our industry, sure, my suite or salon might be here, and yes, maybe we are in competition with this suite down the road or the salon down the road, but we know at the end of the day, when there's something in our community that we all need to come together, we do. And that's one industry. We are the industry that does that beautifully within the entire world. So share your celebrations, your victories, but also seek and discover, communicate what your challenges are. And as an industry, we will grow and boom together.
Yeah, so good. You're amazing, Heather. We love you. We appreciate you so much for being on today.
Well, appreciate you guys having me. So great to see you, Tina and Sean. This has been a wonderful experience. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Heather. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.